Hello everybody, I am Cole from TCG Cardcast, bringing you my 40-card Egyptian God deck profile. So let's get straight into that. So the important part for an Egyptian God deck, clearly you have your necessities, right? So here are the Egyptian gods that I play in this deck. So what I do is I play two copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra. They're all level 10 Divine Beast effect monsters. Ra can't be special summoned. All three of them require 3 tributes to summon. The normal summon of each of these cards cannot be negated. So when they're summoned, other cards and effects can't be activated. So like you can't like flip an Eternal Soul or anything else when these guys are summoned, which is pretty great. When Ra is normal summoned, you can pay life points so that you only have 100 left, and then he'll gain that many attack points. So if you get him out on like turn 1 somehow, and you have 8,000 points, you can give him all but 100 of them. So he'll have 7,900 attack points. Or you can choose not to, and then pay 1,000 life points. You can target monsters on the field and then destroy those targets. So that's pretty cool. So you can pay 1,000 pop, 1,000 pop, 1,000 pop, something like that. And I play 2 of him because in this deck, Ra is your OTK machine, if you do plan to go for that kind of playstyle. So that is important for Ra. Obelisk, if you have 2 or more monsters, first of all, he's untargetable by spells, traps, and other card effects, which is really, really good. I used to play 2 of him in this deck, but then I realized how much stronger Ra was when played with other cards. So I just play Ra mostly. But back to Obelisk. So he's untargetable by card effects. And then once per turn during the end phase... Oh, and another thing. If Slifer or him are special summoned, during the end phase, they have to go to the graveyard. Ra doesn't have to because, again, as you can see here, it says it cannot be special summoned, so it doesn't have to account for that effect. That'll come in for some cheesy plays later. So these two, when they're both special summoned, they both have to go back to the graveyard at the end of the turn they were special summoned. You can tribute 2 monsters for Obelisk, and then destroy all monsters your opponent controls. This card cannot, and then he can't declare an attack the turn that's summoned, or the turn that effect is played. He's got 4,000, 4,000, so he's pretty tough. He is really strong. If you can't get Ra out, Obelisk is your next best bet. Next up is Slifer. Slifer gains 1,000 points for every card in your hand, so he's pretty good. There's enough draw power in this deck to get Slifer to be even remotely a choice, because normally Slifer isn't really the best choice. But then if your opponent summons a monster in face-up attack position, that monster loses 2,000 attack, and if its attack is reduced to 2-0 as a result, you have to destroy it. So Slifer's pretty cool to stop your opponent from getting those low-level 4s out on the field, or those low-attack 4-pointers on the field. And yeah, I used to play this with, I used to play my Secret Rare Slifer the Sky Dragon, because that is actually my very first card ever, was my Secret Rare Slifer the Sky Dragon. But it didn't fit in because I have all Ultra Rare stuff, but yeah. Those are your Egyptian God cards. Next up, I do play this deck's Resident Kaiju, which is the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode. I play that in 2. It's just a really great card overall. It's also a divine beast. I don't know if I said these guys were light divine beasts. They are divine beasts, level 10. This card can also not be special summoned. It requires 3 tributes from either side of the field, so you can tribute 3 of your opponent's monsters to summon it to his side of the field, or 3 monsters from your side of the field to summon it to your side of the field. And then during the end phase, it returns to its owner's control. Your opponent cannot target this card for attacks or by card effects, which is really good. This thing is literally a wall. You can tribute this card, special summon 1, the Winged Dragon of Ra, from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, so you can go straight past the cannot be special summoned rule. And because Ra says it, and because Ra does not say it has to go back to the graveyard when it's special summoned, it just stays on the field, which is great. And then it gains 4,000 attack and defense, which is amazing. Essentially, you're making Ra into a way better Obelisk, because you don't have to pay monsters, you just have to pay 1,000 life points to pop monsters, which is really, really good. So that's why these guys are in here. They are also very searchable. So these guys are your deck's Resident Kaiju, and they are really cool. Next up, you have the disciples of the big man himself. You have Ra's Disciples. You're playing 3 of these guys. They are light level 4 fairy effect monsters. Don't know why they're fairies, but I'm okay with it. They have 1,000. They have 1,100 attack and 600 defense. When this card is summoned, you can special summon up to 2 Ra's Disciples from your hand and or deck. Cannot be tributed except for the tribute summon of Slifer the Sky Dragon, Obelisk the Tormentor, or the Winged Dragon of Ra. You cannot special summon monsters except by the effect of Ra's Disciples. So while these guys are on the field, you cannot special summon monsters, which sucks, but this deck doesn't really this deck does rely on a lot of special summoning. So if you guys if you get these guys out, you better be going right into an Egyptian god as soon as you can afterwards. But you can play these guys and then immediately do like your duality. So there's really no cost for duality, which is a nice little. It's a tiny combo, but it's a good combo anyways. But this is really good to get your tribute fodder out. Something I do like saying about the Rosh Disciples, I wish that their effect said these cards cannot be tributed except for the tribute summon of a divine beast monster, so you could use them for Sphere Mode, because Sphere Mode is not the Winged Dragon of Ra, it's the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. If it said Winged Dragon of Ra monsters, it'd be a different question, but sadly these guys are not usable for the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. They're only usable for the 3 basic gods, so these are like your Obelisk or your Slifer tributes, because you never want to tribute summon Ra, unless you just want to get him out for like popping field and then sack him off for something else. But the Ra's Disciples. Next up, you're going to be playing 3 copies of the Tricky. The Tricky is a Wind level 5 spellcaster effect monster with 2,000 attack and 1,200 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding 1 card. Pretty simple. If I did have the Winged Dragon of Ra Immortal Phoenix mode, this card would definitely work really well with that. I do plan on getting one eventually. It's just a really expensive card. It's like $15, and I'm not going to spend $15 on a card that isn't too good in the long run. So yeah, there is an endless loop. There is like an infinite loop you can pull off with Sphere Mode, Ra, and Immortal Phoenix. But again, I do not own an Immortal Phoenix, so these guys are pretty much just let's get something into the graveyard, get something out fast. It's pretty good, in all honesty. These are just really good summoning cards you can pull off for your Egyptian gods. Next up, one of the cards my friends hate the most whenever I play this deck, Marsh Macaron. You're playing 3 Marsh Macarons in this deck. Marsh Macaron is a light level 1 fairy effect monster with 200 attack and 200 defense. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon up to two Marsh Macarons from your hand, deck, and or graveyard. You can only use this effect of Marsh Macaron once per turn. So you set your Marsh Macaron, right? Your opponent attacks into it. They destroy it because it only has 200 attack and defense. You get 2 more. Next turn, your opponent destroys 1, then your opponent destroys the other. You get those 2 that are in the graveyard now back. Essentially, they're an endless loop card as long as your opponent doesn't destroy all of them on the field, or if you monster born them or soul charge them back onto the field. Essentially, these things are just walls, and it's great. They're also really good tribute fodder. You can get all 3 out, you can get 2 of them out relatively easy, seeing as their effect is literally special summon each other from the graveyard. But yeah, that's that. So they're pretty cool. Playing the original version of Marsh Macaron, we are playing 3 Marsh Malons in this deck. Marsh Malon is a light level 3 fairy effect with 300, 500. After damage calculation, if this card was attacked and was face down at the start of the damage step, the attacking player takes 1,000 damage, cannot be destroyed by battle. So these guys are just undestroyable by battle. If they're flipped face up during battle, your opponent takes 1,000 damage. They're just annoying cards that I love to play because they're just really nice defensive cards. They stay on the field a really long time unless your opponent can pop them really easily. But even then, your opponent is taking 1,000 damage if this card is attacked face down, which is really good. And again, indestructible by battle. I'm sure there are better cards we could throw in here. I just don't have better cards to throw in here. So I just decided to stick with the 3 Marsh Macarons. Or 3 Marsh Malons. But yeah, Marsh Malon's always really fun. This is a card I see across every single deck that requires multiple tribute summons. Scapegoats. This card is your instant token. This is your instant tribute fodder card right here. Scapegoat is a dark level 1 zombie flip tuner effect monster with 0 attack and defense. You can special summon when it's flipped up face up. You can special summon any number of black sheep tokens. Zombie type, dark level 1, attack 0, defense 0. So as long as you have zones. So say we're playing right now, right? Say it's my turn. I flip my Scapegoat. I get to summon 4 tokens because I can summon as many as I want, as long as there's room on the field. And because he is flipped up, you obviously can't have one in that zone. So I just get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can immediately sack those. These aren't tribute restricted, so you can instantly go into your Obelisk or your Slifer or your Sphere Mode, which is really good. Next up, I'm only playing 2 of this card because it does again stop you from special summoning a lot. So we have Card D. The Card D is a Earth level 2 machine effect with 800, 400. Cannot be special summoned during your main phase 1. If this card was normal summoned this turn, you contribute this card, draw 2 cards. That's part of your like your draw strategy right there. Is you're playing 2 card cards. It Then it becomes the end phase of the turn, so you can't do anything else. Essentially, you have to play these guys if you know you can hold out for another turn. If you got like an Egyptian, if you have like Slifer on the field, and your opponent has nothing, you can play this guy and instantly get another 2 cards into your hand for Slifer, and that'll raise him up by 1,000 because you obviously lost card from your hand. But you also cannot special summon during the turn you activate this effect, which kind of sucks, but it's whatever. Card is just really good for draw power. You really do want to search this deck a lot. Final card in this deck is kind of a rogues gallery, if you will. Chewbone Jr. or Chewbone. My bad. I always get him and his tokens mixed up. Chewbone is an Earth level 3 zombie effect monster with 300/300. Now here's where he really comes in handy. Flip, special summon 3 Chewbone Jr. tokens, zombie type Earth level 1, attack 100, defense 300, in defense position to your opponent's side of the field. They're probably thinking, why would you want to play this? Well, what you would do is you flip summon this guy, your opponent gets 3 Chewbone tokens, and then instantly into sphere mode. It's because sphere mode requires 3 tributes from the side of the field. You're playing 2 sphere mode. If you do have Chewbone face down on the field, your opponent attacks into it, or you flip it face up, your opponent gets 3 monsters, and you can instantly do your sphere mode. So that's why he's really good. I do play him in this deck. I have played him a couple times, and he does work for that combo. Like, I pull that combo off every time I play him, because he's not the card you want to play if you can't do it. He's only the card you want to play if you can do it. That's all the monsters. Onto the spells and traps. We have 2 Mound of the Divine Creator. Now you're probably thinking, why 2? 3 clogged, but we are playing a terraforming in here, so if you don't get one, you can always terraform it out. It's a field spell. Level 10 or higher monsters on the field cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. If a level 10 or higher monster on the field destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, the player who controlled the destroyed monster takes 1,000 damage. When this card on the field is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Divine Beast monster from your deck to your hand. Now, you never want to search out Obelisk, Slifer, or the Winged Dragon. Raw with this, you always want to go for, again, your sphere mode. Your sphere mode is always your search target. It's always your tribute target. If you can get sphere mode out, do it. Don't waste it on Obelisk or Slifer. My personal strategy is can I get sphere mode out? Do it. That's that. And it's a really good field spell. It's a really cool field spell, and it does help your Egyptian gods do some crazy stuff. They are untargetable, and they deal 1,000 damage whenever they destroy a monster. Pretty cool. Terraforming searches a field spell from your deck to your hand. Obviously, your mounds. There's nothing much to say there. Now, we are playing 2 copies of the Tricky, so I figured why not, or we are playing 3 copies of the Tricky, let's play 2 copies of Tricky Spell 4. Tricky Spell 4 is a quick play spell. Send 1 face up the Tricky you control to the graveyard. Special summon Tricky tokens, spellcaster types, wind level 5s, with 2,000 attack and defense, or with 2,000 attack, 1,200 defense in defense position equal to the number of monsters your opponent controls. Say your opponent's got 3 monsters on the field and you have a Tricky on the field. 1 of these in your hand, and the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode. Play, get your 3 Trickies, go into Sphere mode. Again, Sphere mode is your instant play. Sphere mode is like step 1 to your win condition. If you can get Winged Dragon of Ra on the field, it's pretty much game, unless your opponent has something up their sleeves that they can use. Your win condition for this deck is honestly Mound and Ra, because it's an OTK machine. It's just really good. Something I did notice about this deck is it didn't have a lot of search power, and it does play kind of slowly. So I do play 2 gold sarcophagi. Banish one card from your deck face up during your second standby phase after this card's activation. Add that card to your hand. Usually, because I'm playing 2 copies of Raw and Sphere mode in this deck, those are the more common cards to draw out of all the Divine Beasts in this deck. So I usually use these for Slifer and Obelisk because I just kind of want them out of my way so I can draw into the better Divine Beasts. And then by the time they're out of my way again, I just get them back into my hand. So that's really cool. So yeah, really cool card. There are a lot of actually ceremonial duel cards from the final episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters in this deck. There are actually a lot of them because, surprise, surprise, a lot of them really work with the Egyptian gods that were played in that duel. So that's really cool. I'm playing 2 Pots of Duality. Excavate the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 of them to your hand. Also, after that, shuffle the rest back into your deck. You can only activate 1 Pot of Duality per turn. You cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. Pretty cool. This is, again, the card you want to search your top 3 out. Maybe add a Divine Beast, maybe add a Mound, maybe add a Ross Disciple, add a whatever to your hand, and then you shuffle the rest back into your deck. The only thing that ever sucks, and I do this a lot, that's why I only play 2 of this card. More often than not, I will reveal into another duality, which kind of sucks, but again, it's still deck thinning, so why wouldn't you want to thin out and add a card to your hand for Slifer? Speaking of adding cards, here's a card you can discard for Twin Twisters. This is another card you would want to play for your Phoenix mode if you have one. It's a quick play spell. Discard 1 card, then target up to 2 spell trap cards on the field. Destroy them. So here's an example of a play you might want to do. Say your opponent has a really good spell card on the field. You have 1 Mound of Bound Crater on the field and 1 in your hand. Play Twin Twisters. Pop your Mound, and you get to search a Divine Beast, and then you get to play another one, which is a really great combo. So that's usually what I do. But usually if my opponent doesn't have a level 10 or higher Divine Beast, which I doubt they would, or a level 10 or higher monster, which usually they don't, but there's those chances where they do, I will just play this card just to pop it to search out another Divine Beast, because if as fast as I can get Sphere Mode, it will be the better. This card is very essential for getting out tributes fast in a risky situation. Soul Charge. Target any number of monsters in the graveyard, special summon in your graveyard, special summon them, and if you do, you lose 1,000 life points for each monster special summoned by its effect. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. You can only activate 1 Soul Charge per turn. This card is great for... I've actually done combos where I've had both Slifer and Obelisk in the graveyard. I've played this and I've gotten them both in the field and I've won because of it. You can do, like, let me get my... I don't know, let me get my 3 Marshmallows back, or let me get my 2 Trickies back to special summon or something like that. But, like, if this card's really good because you can pay up to 3,000 to get your 3 tributes if the duel has gotten to that point where you need 3 tributes and you're not getting them, this is pretty much the point where you'd want to do it. So that's really cool. I could not bring myself to play an Egyptian God deck without this card. It is Monster Reborn. Target 1 monster in either player's graveyard, special summon it. I am working on building up enough money to buy the Egyptian art, the Ankh art to play on this deck, just because it'd be so awesome to have in here. But yeah, that card's for getting out your other Egyptian gods if they're in the graveyard or anything else. For traps, I'm playing 3 bottomless trap holes. When your opponent summons a monster with 1,500 or more attack, destroy that monster with 1,500 or more attack, and if you do, banish it. That's really crazy. We're playing 3 of this card because your opponent, more often than not, is playing monsters with more than 1,500 attack points. So that's that. And the final card in this deck is Jar of Avarice. This card is just there to get, if you've wasted all your cards and you're out of nothing and you got nothing to do, there are 5 essential cards in this deck that you will want to send back into your deck and then draw 1 card that you more often than not have in your graveyard, surprisingly. You can only activate 1 Jar of Avarice per turn. That's okay, you're only playing 1. But you get to target 5 cards in your graveyard except Jar of Avarice, and you get to shuffle them into your deck and then draw a card. That's pretty good, by all means. So yeah, Jar of Avarice. So there is no extra deck for this deck. I don't like playing an extra deck with this deck because it kind of draws away from the Egyptian gods. In all honesty, this is supposed to be a main deck, not a side deck. So I do kind of draw away from using the side deck for this deck. That's why, again, I do not use a side or an extra deck. I don't know if I was just saying side deck or if I was saying extra deck, but yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching this this deck profile. If you want to see more deck profiles, check out the playlist in the top left corner. If you want to see some character deck profiles, check out the playlist in the lower right corner. Make sure to click our logo in the center of the screen to subscribe, to make sure you are notified every time you see our content come up. Make sure you click the notification bell. Make sure to like this video, share it with your friends who like the Egyptian gods, and we'll see you guys next time. Later.